After the Peshawar attack, questions are being raised on how to take on the many armed groups in Pakistan. Some say those groups have been tolerated, but will the army and its intelligence service be able to end this kind of violence, and if so, how? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the programme. I'm Martine Dennis. Pakistan is no stranger to bloody, lethal attacks committed by the Pakistani Taliban. But Tuesday's events in the northwestern city of Peshawar surpassed its increasingly audacious track record. The 132 children who died were not bystanders, but targets in an act of revenge against the Pakistani military. The killings have shocked the nation, which has now entered 3 days of mourning. It's also prompted a period of intense reflection. The attack is a dire consequence of a war being fought between the state and the Pakistani Taliban in the northwestern tribal areas. But for many Pakistanis, it's a war that's fraught with hypocrisy and double dealing. While the Pakistani military vows to destroy the so-called bad Taliban, it's accused of secretly supporting the good Taliban, or militants whom it can use to further its own wider security objectives. So who are the people responsible for this attack? Well, the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, known as the Pakistani Taliban or the TTP, is an umbrella group of anti-state fighters that was formed in 2007. Now, they say Tuesday's attack is revenge for the Pakistani military's offensive against their strongholds in the tribal areas on the border with Afghanistan. Now, the group is, of course, linked to the Afghan Taliban just across the border, but the Pakistani military is often accused of playing a double game in its dealing with the groups, targeting Taliban fighters it considers a threat, while supporting those that work against Pakistan's rivals. All right, now we can get the thoughts of our guests on this. Joining us from Islamabad is Talat Masood, former Pakistani military general. In London, Amin Jan, country director at Actis Strategy. From Oxford, Aisha Siddiqa. She's a Pakistani military analyst and author of Military Incorporated, Inside Pakistan's Military Economy. Can I start with you, please, Talat Masood? As a former member of the Pakistan Armed Forces, what's going through the mind now of Raheel Sharif, the head of Pakistan's military?
Well, I think he is even more determined and more resolved to sort of take on, because there is already a military operation which is being taken in North Waziristan against these militants. And I think he will intensify this military operation. He will spread it also in the other parts, which is Khyber, and wherever these militants try to sort of escape from North Waziristan or are found in any other part of Pakistan. I think it is not only him, but I think the entire nation today stands united with the military, which has not been the case in the past. And the resolution which has been passed by all the political parties of all hues, who were also had differing views at one time, are united, that I think this Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan and all militant groups will be treated alike, and they will support the military action. And I think this is a major change as far as the politics of Pakistan is concerned, because I think you cannot win this war against the militants unless you have the support of the people and the political parties.
And Amin Jan, in London, do you see this then as being a seminal moment for Pakistan, for both the state and its unity, and indeed its battle against militant insurgencies?
It is certainly the case that for once, after I would say a very long time, we are seeing this level of political unity and condemnation of this barbaric attack. And I think that the demonstration that all the political parties have had is a seminal moment The real question is, how far is this going to go into actually taking action against militant groups? The militant groups are, of course, not just those who come under the umbrella of the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, but there are militant groups that are operating in other parts of the country, many of whom have not been targeted, and some would argue have in the past been supported by elements of the political establishment. Are those groups, such as those who are organized in southern Punjab, are they also going to come in for similar treatment at the hands of the state? Is there going to be a crackdown against those groups? And in fact, is there going to be the state's capability to take action against elements of the Taliban who have now left the battlefront and taken their war into other parts of Pakistan? We've seen horrendous attack in Peshawar yesterday. Before that, we have seen an attack on the border between Pakistan and India near Lahore. We've seen incidents of terrorism taking place in other parts of Pakistan, in cities like Karachi and elsewhere. What is the state going to be able to do in terms of reducing and managing those atrocities and violence in other parts of the country now that they are showing a demonstration of political will? And I think that's the real question that we have to look for in the coming period.
Can I turn to you now, Dr. Aisha Siddiqa? This was a methodical attack carried out by several militants. We don't know whether they were actually killed or whether they blew themselves up. But obviously, high casualty count, many of them, the vast majority of them, indeed children. How does this particular attack differ from the other atrocities that have been carried out? As we pointed out at the beginning of the programme, Pakistan witnesses, unfortunately, so many brutal attacks involving civilians.
Well, there's similarities and the commonalities between this one and other attacks, but there's a difference as well. I think at a tactical level, it shows that because perhaps they could not reach hard targets, they went for the soft target. But the fact that 7 men dressed up in particular uniforms, FC uniforms, armed with suicide jackets and weapons, passed through rather secure areas compared to the rest of the city, again raises question. This is a discussion which has come out again and again, even previously, of possible links between people, within the forces, within law enforcement, within the armed forces and these militants. Let me point out something, this discussion that was going on about resolve and all of that. I think, yes, people have condemned across the board this attack, but is this a condemnation across the board against all form of militancy? I wouldn't agree on that.
OK, well, can I take that point? That's a very interesting point, and then put that point to Talad Masood, because Nawaz Sharif, of course, the elected Prime Minister, has come out and said there shall be no more good Taliban and bad Taliban, the implication being that all militant groups are bad. Give us an idea as to what he's specifically referring to. I'd like you to just talk to the point that some militant groups, appear to have been tolerated, if you like, by elements of the Pakistan establishment.
Well, I think what they are referring to, and correctly, that whether the Kashmiri jihadis are also included in the branding all the militants together. He's not using the word all the militants. He's using the word the good Taliban and the bad Taliban, which means those Taliban which are attacking Pakistan and those Taliban which are attacking Afghanistan. In the past, Pakistan has been giving preferential treatment, or for that matter, not targeting the Afghan Taliban, because it thought that they had a certain power base in Afghanistan and it may be pointless, and from their point of view of priorities, they did only target the Pakistani Taliban. But now they have realized that that policy has recoiled, and so they are now focusing on all Taliban and are making sure that whether it is Haqqani network or any other, they just will not stay in Pakistan. They have no tolerance for them, and if they continue to operate from here, they will be treated exactly the same way as the others are treated. And at the same time, they are also pursuing this policy because they expect that Afghanistan will do the same, because what was happening was that both the countries were having sanctuaries in their own country, which were being used against the other country, which was extremely detrimental to both the countries. Now, with the new leadership in Afghanistan, they have realized that the best policy would be to eliminate all the sanctuaries and take similar action on both sides of the border. So I hope I have answered your question. As far as the Kashmiri jihadis are concerned, it's a matter of Pakistan and India, and that has to be settled politically. And I think at the moment the focus is more on the western border and not as much on the eastern.
All right, let's talk a little bit later on about the broader environment in which this situation has occurred. But I mean, Jan, this was such a brutal, meticulous act. Some have pointed out that perhaps this is an indication of the desperation, if you like, of the Pakistan Taliban, that the operation in Waziristan is actually working and they've been flushed out of their stronghold.
Well, I mean, I think it is quite evident that the military operation called Zarb-e-Azb is having a very serious effect on the ability of the Taliban of the Pakistani Taliban to inflict damage. And I think this is an act to demonstrate that they still have the ability to inflict that damage. But I think, these are kind of pinprick attacks which have high symbolic value. But if you actually look at the capability, compared to a few years ago, we do see that since the operations by the Pakistan Army, there has been a significant reduction in the ability of the Pakistani Taliban to wreak havoc, despite the fact that we've seen something very shocking. But it is precisely what you're suggesting, that the high symbolic value draws attention to the group and demonstrates or they try to demonstrate that they're still very active and able to inflict damage. But in fact, there is an inner weakness compared to a couple of years ago, and that is a demonstration of the successes. Having said that, I think, the fact of the matter is that by pounding the Taliban in one part of the country, the FATA regions, particularly North Waziristan, we also have a situation of a dispersal of the Pakistani Taliban into other parts of the country. Now, how many more such quote-unquote pinprick attacks will the nation tolerate? These are of significant symbolic value both for the Taliban in terms of their own support base, but also a very demoralizing effect on the Pakistani nation. And until very significant actions are taken to secure particularly those urban areas which are vulnerable, and I would say Peshawar and Karachi are two among those urban centers where this kind of violence will have strong symbolic effect. These are soft targets, and they will remain so.
And Aisha Sadiqa, so the army effectively has taken a direct hit. This was a military-run school designed to produce the elite of Pakistan society. But the backdrop to all of this, of course, is the fact that there is a continuing power struggle in Pakistan between the army, the security force, the intelligence forces, I should say, and indeed the elected government. So how can there be a united front to take on the security challenge that is now within country rather than from outside?
Well, this was a medium-level school, army controlled and run by the army, which had 25% of civilian children as well from the adjoining areas. It was not totally military children, but military or civil, it's both a tremendous loss. Yes, we continue to be on a different page. And let me draw your attention towards, what I said earlier about not being a consensus on how do you deal with this problem. Because already you have people like the former military dictator Pervez Musharraf pointing a finger in a television program about India's involvement. He's accused India, and he has in fact said, let's launch an offensive. In fact, one of the television anchors who's supposedly very close to both military intelligence agencies and the former general has argued that the government should stop India's overhead flights. So there is this tendency to divert attention. Now that feeds into, again, the civil-military divide. I don't think that it's even right to distinguish between different groups that are fighting. There is, I'm sorry, it's a very problematic messaging if people say that there is a disconnect between those fighting in Kashmir, others who are doing sectarian violence, and others who are doing, the TTP. They are all connected ideologically. Their manpower is connected. You cannot untangle them.
Can I just ask you about popular opinion within Pakistan? There's obviously widespread outrage at this particular incident, but it has been suggested that a large section of Pakistan society has also been quite tolerant of some of the activities of some of these militant groups.
You see, it depends on, the military itself, I'm sorry, has been tolerant. They have allowed, Amin Jan was talking about South Punjab, and let me, inform him and others, the listeners as well, that the groups which operate in South Punjab are not operating because of help from the political government itself, but from the security establishment, and that has to go. Lashkar-e-Taiba, when you have a militant leader strutting around on horseback right in the heart of the city, then you create problems. Then the signaling, and I think now what needs to be done, you cannot solve the problem without getting the political leadership, the leadership from civil society and the military on one page. And I think what they need to do is, while the military does its operations, the political government and the civil society needs to come together to get one process right, which is de-radicalization. We have to de-radicalize the society. We have to take the narrative, the initiative of the narrative away. This is not religion. This is not about religion. And in fact, if you look at the statement of Umar Khorasani, which has been thrown out on social media, he has justified this heinous attack according to Quran and Sunnah, which does impress some people. Now, to do that, the initiative has to be taken. And I think anyone, I say, period, whether it be TTP or Lashkar-e-Taiba or Jaish-e-Mohammed or anyone, there should not be allowed to do this kind of negative propagation. This radicalizes the society. There should be more controls on terror financing. There should be greater accountability, and there should be zero tolerance for any propagation of religion which diverts people's attention from peace towards violence.
And Talat Masood, it sounds as though there's a very, very big challenge ahead. My question to you would be, is Nawaz Sharif and Raheel Sharif, are these the men to do the job? Can they manage the job? Because it sounds like a gargantuan task ahead of them.
Absolutely. You have identified it very correctly. There are multiple militant groups. There are militant groups which are operating in Afghanistan, against Afghanistan. There are militant groups that are operating within Pakistan. There are militant groups which are operating against India as far as Kashmir is concerned. So there are multiple, and there are sectarian groups. So and there are some which have a global agenda. But the main challenge at the moment, of course, in terms of priority, is obviously the Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan and its affiliates. So I think they are targeting that, and they think that and I think the priority is right. As far as the problem of the Kashmiri jihadis are concerned, it's also a very serious problem. It has affected the society. I do agree with Aisha on that. But at the same time, I think, this is also a regional problem, and it is not as simple as all that, because there is a large number of Kashmiris in Pakistan. As you know, Pakistan also has got a large part of Kashmir as a part of Pakistan. And there is a huge resentment against the way that India conducts itself in Kashmir. They have got a very large percentage of their forces, which are deployed in Kashmir to suppress the Kashmiris. At the same time, they have deployed them on the border. And this has given rise to a lot of resentment. I'm not in favor of using these extremists or these militant groups in terms of militancy, but I think if the government, which I hope it is looking at this problem very seriously and trying to sort of make these groups which have been militant in character to sort of become more political and sort of press India politically rather than through these asymmetric forces. So I think this transformation is also necessary, and in this I would say that India, if it would cooperate in terms of negotiations, in terms of having a dialogue, even if we do not reach any solution in the near future, the very fact that if there is a dialogue, if there is a process, I think the government will be in a much better position to control these other militant groups that we were talking about.
Right. Can I take that point and put that to both Amin and to Aisha? First to you, Amin. Now, Talat has widened the spectre and talked about, obviously, relationship with India. For so long, of course, it's the rivalry with India that's been uppermost in the Pakistani security mind, hasn't it? Has the security landscape now changed immeasurably, particularly as you have a change of guard? You've got Mr. Modi now in New Delhi.
Yes. I think, there isn't much, as General Massoud is indicating, there doesn't seem to be much change in the mindset that Pakistan can fight a battle against one part of the militant groups and, on the other hand, protect the others. I think there's a real serious question here about how long that kind of dual policy can actually get results. If that continues, I think, as Aisha pointed out, there are very great similarities in terms of ideology, mobilization, the role that militant groups in South Punjab and elsewhere take. And so as the Taliban start getting pushed out, there is a real risk that some of the other groups will also start coming within that ambit, and there might be some influencing that happens in both directions. I think it's a very dangerous policy to continue to focus on just one part of the militant, non-state militant actors, while not taking similar action to contain the spread of the others.
We are running out of time, so I just need to put this point to you, Aisha, about the change of guard in the region. Of course, there's also Ashraf Ghani, who plays an integral part in the security problem, particularly affecting the areas bordering his country. And the initial impression is that the relations are pretty warm between Kabul and Islamabad.
Sure. One of the reasons why I think we will hang on to this policy of double speak, and some of the Taliban, the good Taliban at least, is because post-2014, I think there is a lot of maneuvering to be done. It's at least the understanding of the army. But the other thing is change in thinking vis-a-vis India. I don't see that there is a shift in that basic paradigm. And with Modi, the suspicion is actually higher on the Pakistani side. As far as the point made by General Massoud about different groups dedicated to different things, different fronts, again, I do not agree. For example, the Lashkar-e-Jhangvi is Deobandi, as Sipai Sahaba, as Jaish-e-Mohammed. Some of them, seem to be dedicated to sectarian issues. Others seem to be dedicated to Kashmir. But you have a constant flow of people across, this network.
I'm sorry, Dr. Aisha Siddiqa, I'm going to have to jump in there. I'm really sorry, we've run out of time. We could talk forever, couldn't we? But for now, thank you very much indeed. Dr. Aisha Siddiqa talking to us from Oxford, Amin Jan talking to us from London, and General Talat Massoud talking to us live from Islamabad. And a reminder that you can find this show and many more on our website. That's aljazeera.com. You can post your comments at facebook.com/AJ Inside Story, or Of course, you can contact us on Twitter. Our handle is @AJ Inside Story. I'm Martine Dennis. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.